I was just talking to myself here, walking along Storbo Road. I remembered that I used to make videos back in Winnipeg when I was on CBD, and I'm on some CBD right now, not too much, but thought I'd make a video here, depending on my battery. The length of the video will depend on my battery, but I was talking about spiritual things and how when you're high, it feels good to puke if you're having a bad trip, because the parasites inside of you don't want the food in your gut, they want your physical body to feed on. And so when you're high, you gotta let the parasites eat your body, because they don't want the dead shit. Like, humans eat stuff that's dead, not really stuff that's alive. Parasites want stuff that's alive, like a living being to feed off of. And then that sort of transferred into spiritual talk about demons, or rather entities that feed on your weakness and feed off of your lack of energy. And that brought me to the concept of Ornius, one of Solomon's demons, where he has the head of a lion sometimes, and he has wings that he can fly up into the heavens to overhear God's plans. Where that also led me to was thinking of the modern mystery school. And really, I feel it's my destiny to get the galactic activation and the full spirit activation, because I need all parts of my body to work if I'm to effectively become the man of lawlessness. So I need my galactic activation and I need my full spirit activation to work if I'm going to effectively be the man of sin, the abomination of desolation, the man of lawlessness, as said in the Bible. Fuck, I was just in Trail. I took a shit in between two dumpsters, and what do you know, some guy comes up, looks at me, walks along, but I knew something was wrong. I was like, oh fuck. Next day, everyone's calling me a shitter. Every time he sees me, he's calling me a shitter, so I just left Trail. Plus the water tastes bad in Trail. I don't trust the water in Trail. Something's weird in Trail. Trail was a part of the nuclear program in World War II. Trail developed the first nuke, one of the first nukes in World War II, for use by Canadian government, obviously for use by the Canadian government. So Trail is a weird place. I was in the psych ward there just recently, plus I was in the psych ward there back in 2020, early 2020, possibly 2019, I don't know, more like 2020. And effectively what I got out of it was that there's a deep underground section to Trail where there's nukes, and I feel like Trail is a huge nuclear program in general, with Tech Cominco digging massive tunnels underneath Trail where they store the nukes, and where if you're part of the nuclear program, then you also need to be on MK Ultra programming, because that's just the nature of nuclear warfare. You need to be able to keep a huge secret, right? You need to be able to keep the secret of where the codes are, what the codes are. MK Ultra, you can keep codes in your brain for an indefinite period of time, unless you develop Alzheimer's or something like that. But effectively, MK Ultra is also a demonic thing. I got to admit, if you're going to do MK Ultra, you got to do it right, and that's doing it on a child. And if you're going to abuse a child, that's just demonic. Like, you're just summoning demons into the child's spirit. And how do you get a child to willingly consent to a demon possessing him? You got to put the child on acid, because acid elevates you to the spiritual heights where both demons and angels live. So you're communicating mentally and physically and emotionally with some very unseen but powerful spiritual forces when you're on these drugs. So I'm convinced, I feel like when I was 3, these Satanists, they put me on acid, and basically I feel like my father raped me and then they made me kill him, right? Because that's what Skinners do. They rape children, and then what defense do the children have? So the Satanists figured, well, if I'm going to be the man of sin, one of the number one sinful things is sexual in nature. It's a sin in the Bible to commit sodomy on another man. So I wasn't sinning by being raped by my father, but I did sin when I killed him as revenge for raping me. And I was only 3, right? But I was probably on acid, because how else would a 3-year-old kill his father and drink his blood and eat his flesh and shit like that? So anyway, I'm at the end of Storbo Road here. I might continue walking down the highway. There's nothing really to do out here. I'm kind of bored. Mainly, sorry, there's lots of cars. I'm kind of bored mainly because I'm on Haldol, which is also called haloperidol. It's hypocritically called an antipsychotic, when really it makes people psychotic. And essentially what I feel is that it's taking all my dopamine away from me. And earlier I was just chatting to myself, just kind of talking into the air about how the problem isn't that I have schizophrenia, the problem is that I have worms. And what the worms do is they feed on my flesh, and they concentrate the dopamine from my flesh into the worm itself. And then they sweat out a lesser form of dopamine that then circulates around my bloodstream, which gives me an elevated level of this lesser form of dopamine, which is like D2 probably, D2 dopamine. And then so that form of dopamine is highly circulated around my blood, because these worms are, I call it sweating. It's really more like a gel that the worm, you know how worms are fucking jelly on the outside, they're all wet on the outside? Yeah, that's because they concentrate the dopamine inside their bodies, the D1 dopamine, and then they sweat the D2 dopamine out through their skin, out through the gel on their skin, or whatever you call the skin of worms, on the outside of the worm. So the problem is not that I have schizophrenia, the problem is that I have worms that are causing me to have elevated levels of D2 dopamine in my bloodstream.